Alabama went on the road to Madison, and they obliterated Wisconsin. 42-10 was the final score, and Kalen DeBoer finally did it. He finally unleashed Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe under Kalen DeBoer looks like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just Jalen Milroe looks like probably the best quarterback in college football right now. This dude is just unstoppable. I would hate having to be an opposing defensive coordinator, having to come up with a game plan for Jalen Milroe, because he can torch you through the air with how accurately he throws the deep ball. He has great touch outside the numbers. And what impressed me about Jalen Milroe's performance against Wisconsin is that he was pretty good when it came to being accurate in the short, intermediate areas of the field, which is the department of his game where he has the most to work on. Because it's weird how he can throw the deep ball more accurately than he can throw short passes. But you can see the steady improvement that he's made with Kalen DeBoer being his head coach. And Kalen DeBoer ran the same offense that helped Michael Penix become a Heisman finalist last year. What made Michael Penix so good last year is that he threw a really good deep ball. Same thing with Jalen Milroe. And when you have one of the best offensive minds in college football in Kalen DeBoer, and you give him this super uber athletic quarterback in Jalen Milroe, where all he needs is a little bit refinement in his mechanics and his decision making, you get a dude who can become an absolute monster to stop. He had 5 total touchdowns in this game. Like, Wisconsin defensively didn't really have too many answers for this dude. And do you know how annoying it is when you have to face off against a quarterback like Jalen Milroe, when you get in third down situations, because you get everybody covered and he still moves the chains anyway with how dynamic he is with his legs? What about when you get into the red zone? You know, like, this dude can shred you in that department as well. When you have a quarterback that has the skill set of Jalen Milroe and he's just able to put it together, it makes it incredibly difficult to game plan for an offense like what Alabama has, because they got great running backs, they got a great offensive line, they're stacked at wide receiver. How can you truly game plan for this? Like, the people that thought that Wisconsin was going to be able to keep this thing close, I was looking at them kind of like, bro, have you been watching Alabama football lately? Do you know about Kalen DeBoer? You can't use that UCF game as a microscope to define what Alabama is, because great teams have, you know, performances where they struggle to win against inferior competition. It happens to every team in college football. It happened to Georgia tonight against Kentucky. But if you thought that you were going to be able to replicate what UCF did or USF did to Alabama last week, you were sadly mistaken. Because the reason why Alabama struggled against USF is that they beat themselves. And when you're a team like Wisconsin, you know, you got to have better quarterback play than what you got. Tyler Van Dyke, he left this game early with an injury, but even when he was in, like, I still don't think he was going to give you a chance at winning this thing or even keeping it close. You got some really good running backs, some really good wide receivers, but Alabama was just way too much for Luke Fickell's team. And Luke Fickell is one of the more underrated coaches in college football, because I think he's a really good culture builder. But Wisconsin has some ways to go before they're ready to compete for a national title, because Alabama, they just rolled in this game. Like, Jalen Milroe just was a man on a mission, and he reminds me a lot of Lamar Jackson. Everybody tried to compare Jaden Daniels to Lamar, but Jalen Milroe is closer to Lamar than any quarterback prospect I've seen in recent memory, because it's hard to touch this dude. He's so elusive. He has a lot of wood on his game, but he's also very strong too. He can put his shoulder down and run through you. With how good of an arm he has, as long as he continues to develop his game as a quarterback overall, getting better in the pocket, getting better at reading defenses, this dude's going to be a handful for any team that Alabama has to play against this year. Like, Kalen DeBoer is showing everybody why he is the second best head coach in college football. Because we've seen Jalen Milroe just take his game to a completely different level. And Wisconsin is not going to be a bad team this year. Even with Tyler Van Dyke being out, I can still see them being a 7-8 win team because they do have pretty good receivers, pretty good running backs, and a solid defense. It's just they weren't talented enough to slow down the Tide.